If a leader is unwilling to change, I don't care who you are, John Maxwell, Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, Patrick Bet-David, some of these great leadership coaches and leaders, they're not going to be able to change them if someone's not willing to change. If they're not willing to grow, if they're not willing to be held accountable, if they're not willing to work on themselves, there's nothing you can do with someone like that. I like to ask leaders and executives and teens also, anyone I'm working with, how teachable are you and how teachable are the leaders that are on your team? There is a correlation between those two answers. There is a correlation between how teachable you are and how teachable your leaders are. Welcome to the EQ Gangster podcast, where you will learn practical tools to grow your mental and emotional health and intelligence to be the best version of yourself, both at work and at home. It is real, raw, and transformational. The journey of emotional growth isn't easy, but it's worth it. I believe in you. EQ Gangsters, what's up? I hope you all are doing amazing. For those of y'all watching on YouTube, thank you. Great to have you all. For those of y'all that are listening on one of the podcast platforms, also thank you. Very grateful for the listeners. On that note, speaking of things that I am grateful for, I got this email from one of a now new listener, which I'm super excited about. Want to share this neat message. I did a keynote speaking engagement for a group of, there's probably 120 people. There were 60 teens, and then there were parents and siblings and stuff as well. So call it 120, 130 people. And at this event called a Junior Elite Priefert Roundup. So Priefert Steel, which is a big steel company in Texas, they do ranch equipment, they do rodeo equipment, the gates, the chutes, all kinds of cool stuff. Well, that company puts on an amazing program for young men and women that are into rodeo, that do all things rodeo. And they're a sponsor. So Priefert sponsors rodeo kids that want to pursue rodeo stuff. And I'm telling you, that's going to be a whole nother episode. Whole nother episode just on that program. It is fire, y'all. Fire. Anyway, so I spoke at that event and I gave them, these kids who are, very competitive, very serious about pursuing this path of rodeo stuff. They rope, they race, you barrel race, they do all kinds of, you got to look it up. It's fascinating stuff. And I talked about, so they're competitors. Well, I talked about how to control your emotions, process your emotions, manage your emotions, prior to and during competition events. The event, so boom, it is, maybe an hour long kind of keynote event. And over the course of the next month, I had probably 5 to 6 different students that attended my workshop, my speaking engagement, letters from them in the mail, like snail mail, old school. No one ever sends snail mail except for like credit card companies and like insurance companies. and that's all automated, digital. There's no human that touches that stuff. So 5 to 6 snail mail handwritten letters from these students, aging between the ages of 8 to 17 or 18, I think, which is awesome. That's incredible. That's, again, nobody does that nowadays. It's a lost art, in my opinion. Well, so then I get this email yesterday. I want to share this email with you. I won't say their last name because I didn't get permission, so I'll just say first names. Hi, hello, my name is Jenny, the amazing mother to Emma. We met at the June Priefert Roundup. You were awesome. My daughter, myself, my husband, and my daughter's sister, have been listening and implanting lessons from your podcast. Do you have worksheets to go along with the podcast? Do you have any tips to discuss topics as a family? We've talked about the lessons after listening to the episodes, but looking for more if possible. That was awesome. That was awesome. Jenny, thank you. If you're listening to this episode, thank you. You made my day. I was so excited to get that. Well, I had a break in time. I have, sometimes I'm back to back coaching appointments and business appointments and stuff. Well, this day that I got the email yesterday, I had a little break. So I'm like, man, and she gave her phone number in here. So I gave her a buzz. It was awesome. And she's like, man, I did not expect at all that you were actually going to call me. I said, well, it's just easier for me to just do a quick phone call than it is to type back this big, long email response. But I said, I have some great ideas for your family to implement and apply some of these EQ principles. Anyway, it was awesome. Made my day. So thank you, Jenny and Emma and your family, for now being listeners to the EQ Gangster podcast and or YouTube. Totally appreciate it. And would love to hear, as you all listen, some of the lessons that you're learning or some of the ways that you all are changing and growing. And we would love to hear from you guys. So please keep in touch. All right. This post is going to be about a client that did not hire us for long-term work with them. They hired us for a workshop, and that was it. They didn't do anything else with us. And a lot of times, if we come in and do a workshop, a lot of companies will be like, dude, that was fire. We want more. This company did not hire us long-term after this workshop. I did a lot of soul searching, a lot of reflection, and man, what could I have done? I do that anyway after each event, business event, workshop, keynote, coaching session. I always like to do after action reviews to assess how I did. What did I do well? What could I have done better next time? What can I do better next time? What lessons did I learn? And I'm going to read this because I'm also going to share this on LinkedIn as well. So what was fascinating about this particular client is they were aware of about 60% of their dysfunction. They weren't aware how their dysfunction was affecting their people and processes. And what's even more fascinating is, and this is why they did not hire us for long-term, is they were comfortable in their dysfunction. They were not ready or willing to actually do something about their dysfunction. They wanted us to work on their leaders and their team, just not them. They wanted their leaders to change. They did not want to change. And I would love to say that, so they were comfortable in their dysfunction. I would love to say that we can help Arrowhead and EQ Gangster, that Arrowhead Leadership, which is Arrowhead Leadership, that's the company that I'm a part of, where I'm a partner with my classmate, where we help companies improve their leadership and grow their leaders to be emotionally intelligent leaders, which improves culture. You guys have heard me say this on this podcast a lot. Emotionally healthy leaders create emotionally healthy cultures, which maximize results, outcome, performance, and engagement. Now, do the opposite. If you have emotionally unhealthy leaders, will lead to a toxic culture, which will lead to minimized, hindered, temporary results, outcome, performance, and engagement. If leaders are not willing to grow and change, there's nothing we can do. And I would like to think that I'm a fairly decent coach, speaker, communicator, especially in this area of emotional intelligent leadership, because I've been working on it and applying it to myself every day the past 5-6 years, and coaching other leaders to do the same thing, and still researching, growing myself in these areas. If a leader is unwilling to change, I don't care who you are, John Maxwell, Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, Patrick Bet-David, some of these great leadership coaches and leaders, they're not going to be able to change them if someone's not willing to change. If they're not willing to grow, if they're not willing to be held accountable, if they're not willing to work on themselves, there's nothing you can do with someone like that. I like to ask leaders and executives and teens also, anyone I'm working with, how teachable are you and how teachable are the leaders that are on your team? There is a correlation between those two answers. There is a correlation between how teachable you are and how teachable your leaders are. Is it direct? Is it always 100%, 100%? I'm not saying that. I am saying there is a correlation, connection, and relationship. Now, this client interaction really made me ask myself the following 4 questions. How aware of my dysfunction am I? 2, how is my dysfunction affecting those around me, personally and professionally? Number 3, how willing am I to work on and be held accountable for working on my dysfunction? Number 4, what is my game plan to work on my dysfunction so that I'm not hindering my family's growth and or my business team's growth? This is a bonus question. Number 5, how does one determine how teachable they are? How do you determine how teachable you are? Emotionally healthy leaders help others grow their emotions and heal other people emotionally. Unaddressed emotions don't get better over time, they actually compound. Your emotional fitness, emotional health, emotional freedom is worth the emotional fitness and emotional heavy lifting to accomplish and achieve the best version of yourself. If this episode affected you, impacted you in any way positively, it would super mean a lot for you to rate, review, subscribe, and share maybe this episode with a friend or a family member, coworker, colleague that you feel could benefit from this episode. And again, thank you, Jenny and Emma and the rest of your family for working on yourself, taking ownership of your own growth and development, and for the journey that you all are on. It is so worth it.